All right, so here we have two Eaton 5S UPS units, and unfortunately this one here has just basically started having issues with the battery. It will run fine when it switches to battery unless the PC is connected and turned on. Basically, if the power usage is above 300 watts or so, it will immediately cut off. Like, let's say like it might do 10 seconds max, and then it will just cut off regardless of how much battery is remaining. So what we're going to be doing in this video is replacing the internal batteries with some new ones. And it's a very simple process, so let's get straight into it. So first of all, what you're going to want to do is power off the UPS unit you're going to be replacing. So for me, that would just be pressing this button and then holding it down until it powers off. Now in this case, I've done this already about twice, and I know that these units are safe to change the batteries in while they're powered on. There's no exposed like circuitry or anything like that. But for a lot of UPSs, a lot of the circuitry is exposed, and it can be very dangerous to do this while it is powered on. So I do recommend completely powering it off, unplugging it from the wall, even unplugging everything from the back pretty much, and just doing it on a table somewhere where you can get proper access to it. So these are Eaton units, and they're rather easy to get into actually. So all you got to do is if you take this off, which you normally can't do because there's a screw on the bottom, you remove this screw and these just slide down. You got to obviously lift it up and slide this cover down. Once you do that, you'll see these two like battery cables right here. These are what connect the main battery pack to the actual UPS unit for charging and power. To remove this, I found the best way to do it is by using a flathead screwdriver. So let me just try and show you the process here. So I've got a flathead screwdriver here, a rather small one, and it's basically a matter of prying on the sides like this. So you just get a little grip of it, put the screwdriver in and pry it up a bit. You'll see already I've put the left side of it out a little bit more than the right, which is a good start. And you swap sides. It's not really that easy to get this out. I don't know if it's supposed to be or if there's a better way of doing it, but this is just what I've found works. Try not to put too much pressure on the actual cables going into there because those can pop off pretty easily if you're not careful. And try and be extra careful when you're doing this, because if you slip and you slam the screwdriver into something like a battery, I mean, it can end very badly if you're not careful. So you don't want to damage anything, you don't want to destroy it. There we go, got it out. So now that these are disconnected, you should be able to pull out the battery drawer itself. Now, a lot of UPS manufacturers will sell this entire like battery compartment kit as a whole replacement set. You don't actually need to buy that, and in my case I couldn't because it wasn't actually available anywhere. It was all out of stock. What you'll be looking for when you get batteries is basically just these kind of two little like units, like 12 volt, 9 amp hour batteries is all you really need for most UPS units. That's all it is. There's just two of these connected in series. And before we move any further, I'd suggest you just take photos of everything you can, try and just document it all so you can actually put it all back together, like the wiring and all that. You see that there's two black wires here. One goes to black, one goes to red. You wouldn't really know that unless you're familiar with how batteries connected or, you know, stuff like that. You can never be too careful, right? Even just filming the whole thing like I am here is a good way to do it. So what you do from this point is you disconnect the battery terminals. So you just separate them a little bit like this. It comes straight out on this particular unit. So you just disconnect one of them and then unplug everything, slot the new ones in like that, and you just put them back in the tray exactly how you found it. You can test the voltages with a multimeter if you want to make sure that everything's connected upright. In my case, I've already replaced the batteries in this unit, so I'm just going to be adding the tape that secures them in place. Because these ones here, you can see the little markings from the tape that was wrapped all around them. And that is used just to hold them in place inside the actual unit. Inside here isn't too complex either, by the way. It's just a little cage to hold all the batteries in. There's nothing that can hurt you in there, which is why I'm comfortable doing this while it's powered on. Of course, do as I say, not as I do, and do disconnect it before you try and do this yourself. Especially if it's your first time doing it, you can never be too careful. It can be dangerous. So I'm going to put these batteries back in. Just a little plastic tray. It's really not anything too fancy here. Put these back in like that. It's got a little indentation where the cables go. So I've got both batteries back in now, as you can see right here, connected as they should be. Now I've also got a multimeter, so I might just test the actual voltages of them real quick. See if I can get that on camera. Yeah, so you can test them individually if you want. They're 12 volt batteries. So they should be around 12 volts. If we do them together, we might see 26 if we get it right, which we do. 26.6 we saw for a sec there. Yep, That's all in spec. And something weird I found as well, right, is these are the old batteries. If I test one of these, put this on, put these leads on here. One of these batteries is 12.8, which is actually more than these ones were, and these ones were brand new. So it's good to know, right? Older batteries, even though they have a higher voltage, they can still have issues with a charge. So I was like, surely it can't be the batteries, it must be the UPS unit, because it only dies when it's got a load on it. That was not the case. These batteries, even though they were 13 volts, they did not power the load I had on it. So 300 watts was just too much for it, and it just died really, really quickly. So yeah, do not go off the voltage reading on a multimeter, because that can mean very little in terms of battery life and capacity. So I've had this UPS for about 2 years, and that's about as long as I'd expect the batteries to last, especially if you're like maxing it out. So this one does about 960 watts. If I was using more than, so I'm using 400 mostly, but if I was at 900, I feel like you wouldn't get 2 years out of the batteries. It'd kind of just stop working a little sooner because of the load being much higher. But yeah, I think every 2 years or so you can get away with replacing batteries. So the last thing I'm going to do with these batteries is I'm going to put tape around the outside and underneath just to secure them in place. That is how they were installed. So I'm just going to do exactly what I remember seeing. I'm sure a lot of UPSs don't have this, which is probably fine because they would have a different mounting system for them. Because these are just on a tray and they can wobble around, that's why they have the tape, I'm guessing. So yeah, try and keep them secure when they're in the UPS. So now they don't wobble, it's just the tray that's wobbling here. The last thing I need to do is just secure it to the tray, because as you can see, they can just pop off at the moment, which we don't want to happen. So let's just do that. And there we go. That is how Eaton supplies their batteries and their UPSs. Other UPSs are obviously going to be different, and I've seen a few that have been quite different. They have their own little metal shell that you can pull out. It holds the battery in it. This is an Eaton 5S UPS, which is a consumer UPS. It's not an enterprise one. And it's designed to be affordable, basically, not so much serviceable. And you shouldn't be replacing these more than every 2 years or so anyway. So I feel like it is adequate to protect it. Either way, let's get this battery back in. So just make sure the connector is the right way around, which it will be. Lift this out of the way. Lift it up into the battery tray. Should just be able to slide it in here. There we go. And final step is connecting the battery connector back up. Obviously, if your connector is a one that can be plugged in 2 different ways, make sure you're doing it the right way, because you don't want to short these batteries out. They can cause a fire and they can explode if you get it really wrong. So always be careful, pay attention to what you're doing. This goes black to black, red to red. Now they'll connect when I push this in. It goes a bit further here. There we go, that's in all the way now. You can see it's locked in on the sides. Other side too. And the last step would be just to put the cover on. So, all right, the last step is just to put this screw back in. So let's go ahead and get that in. There we go, I've now changed this UPS battery. This one here is a year old and it's nearly due for a new one. Probably in a few months or so I'll do this one as well, but this uses different batteries, so should be cheaper. Anyway, this one here is what I just did. 420 watts is currently drawing. That before would have cut it off almost immediately if it went to battery power. So let's just test this out now. My power points are back here. I reach out and flick the switch. Should hear it kick in. You can see, there we go, it's flashing. Indicate that it's on battery. It's got an ETA of 7 minutes remaining. And it doesn't power off on its own, like it will continue to run completely fine. Turns off the screen to save battery, but yeah, there you go. 7 minutes, running on battery, perfectly well. And the computer's still being powered off all that. You can even see down here, I've got a little plug-in type thing. They'll tell you the actual battery stats. There you go, so this will turn off the computer in a moment. If I leave it running, which I won't do. Yeah, 6 minutes remaining. Let's go down and turn it back on before I drain the batteries, because doing this too often is not the best thing for the actual batteries. If you want to preserve them and not have to replace them so often, then you want to avoid doing this as much as possible. But of course, it's also important to test it, so not always avoidable. So there we go, those UPS batteries have been replaced, and this is basically a refurbished unit at this point, and you could go to resell it, you could continue to use it. If you had a really old like enterprise UPS and it still worked aside from on battery, this is the sort of thing you could do, and you could save a lot of money on a new UPS, just changing out the batteries and going off that. But yeah, I got my batteries from Battery World. It's like one of the only places in Australia you can actually get these sort of batteries from, that and J-Car, but these ones seem a bit more reputable. The battery life you'll get will depend on how long they've been sitting on the shelves since they've been manufactured, and basically how old they are, along with how much use they've had. So I would never go for used batteries, always go for brand new. And if you're replacing batteries in a UPS, make sure to replace all of them at once with the identical kind of battery. You don't want to be running mixed batteries, you don't want to be running used and new ones, because that will cause different voltages and different, results, which you do not want. You want it all to be new and running as it should. But yeah, that's the end of this video now. Hopefully I helped you guys out, and if you want to see more content like this, little tips and things, feel free to check me out on Twitch, maybe join my Discord, or even my website, ChrisPro Forum. I shall see you guys in the next video, and until then, goodbye.